Ozen trigger. My friends stole my startup idea, so I crushed his in the market. 1. Setup. I was a hopeful, hard-working man with eyes that still believed in the simple laws of loyalty and grit. I had built a life around honest work, a small apartment that smelled faintly of coffee, and a circle of people I trusted with my heartbeat. My partner in the startup, a man I called brother, stood beside me in the trenches. We believed the same things about effort, about long nights, about the slow climb from nothing to something. Our bonds were the kind you think will last forever. The kind that let you tell a joke in the middle of a storm and hear your own heartbeat in reply. But trust is a fragile thing, and when the wrong hand touches it, the damage goes deep. We did not see the danger coming. We did not hear the hiss behind the compliments. We did not sense the grin that asked to borrow your plan and never return it. Our days were full of whiteboards, scribbled ideas, early morning coffee, and even earlier emails from clients who believed in us. I believed in him as much as I believed in our mission. I believed his quick mind and mine could carve a path through the noise. I believed in the quiet power of two hands working together, and I woke every day with the stubborn hope that trust would hold. In that trust, I found hope, a stubborn flame that would not die even when the weather turned cold, and I carried that flame as if it were a small, bright compass guiding us towards something that mattered. 2. Inciting incident. Then came the moment that tore me open. It was not a single blow, but a flurry of small strikes that rained on the news and the marquee. In a crowded launch room, the lights shone bright, and I saw him, my friend, smiling next to a man who claimed to be a mentor. He spoke of a larger future, of a big exit, of my own name being used in the same breath as success. The idea we had nurtured for 2 years was suddenly no longer ours, as if a door had been pried open with his nail and the idea spilled out into the hands of others. He had sold our startup blueprint to a rival company, and by the time I understood the price, the room had become hollow. Investors who once nodded in interest paused, then looked away as if the spark in my eyes could burn a hole through the floor. The documents looked clean at first, proper signatures and polished slides, but the words on the backroom letters told the real story. Forged authority, a signature that was not mine, and a timeline that showed how quickly confidence can be replaced by greed. The sting was not only treachery, it was a public erasure of trust. I watched as my name left the room and a stranger wore it instead. A stranger who did not sleep with me at night, who did not break bread with me, who did not share a single memory of the season we built together. The betrayal burned like acid in my throat, and I tasted the metal of fear and rage at the same time. It felt like a door slammed in my face, and I stood there, listening to the echo, feeling every heartbeat drum the same message. You are alone now. 3. Rising action. In the days that followed, the city felt loud and cruel. Yet I moved with a quiet, careful pace that matched the tremor in my hands. I did not lash out in anger at the world. I catalogued the hurt and turned it into a map of what to do next. I replayed every meeting, every nod of approval. Every time he had looked at me with that gleam of a plan that was already theirs to claim, I collected every email, every timestamp, every draft of a prototype, and I learned to read the signs of a scan in plain sight. The room smelt of coffee and ink as I pored over contracts, legal forms, and investor notes, as if the truth might hide in the margins if I kept looking long enough. I began to build a quiet resistance, gathering a small crew of allies who believed in the original idea, who would not bow to a lie, who wanted to see the real effort rewarded. My days grew longer, my nights even longer, and the city settled around me like a cold witness to my vow. I listened to the hum of data in the night. I listened to the tick of a clock that refused to stop, and I felt my resolve harden. I learned to breathe through the pain, to keep my eyes on a horizon that did not pretend the hurt would vanish, to measure every breath by the weight of the truth. I learned how to speak without shouting, how to answer questions without giving the enemy oxygen, how to let the world see the truth without becoming the monster I despised. My senses sharpened. I could smell the fear in a boardroom, hear the faint tremor in a voice when someone lied, feel the cold metal of the key in the lock as I prepared to reopen doors that had seemed closed forever. I built a plan that was patient and precise, steps that would not risk the fragile thread of what remained of the trust I had earned from others, but would ensure that the origin of the idea could not be erased, not by greed, not by time. My hands kept practicing the exact motions I would need to reveal the truth, and they never trembled when I thought of the risk, because I knew that without this risk there could be no justice. I found a way to move quietly with power, to influence the right pockets of the market, to place the right questions in front of the right people, and to wait with a calm patience that felt like a vow I would never break. The sting gave me a new purpose, a sharper edge, a pledge to protect the spark in others, to prevent a single man from burying a dozen others under the weight of his own appetite. 4. Climax. The moment arrived on a stage where attention is earned not by bravado but by truth. A conference hall, a microphone, a crowd, the kind of audience that wants a story with a clean finish. He stood across from me, the friend turned rival, the man who'd pretended to share a dream while stealing mine. I did not shout. I spoke with the calm, careful cadence of someone who has measured the cost and still chose to risk everything. I laid out the facts with a ledger in my voice. The dates, the emails, the prototypes, the draft agreements, the signatures that did not belong to me, the timeline that showed how quickly a dream can be hollowed out by a single lie. I did not attack his character with cruel words. I offered the evidence as a mirror, and the room stilled in a moment before truth fractured the lie. He tried to pretend the whole thing was a mix-up, a misread, a misunderstanding. But the crowd saw through him as the light flared on the subtle but undeniable truth. The investors, who once clapped for the spectacle, now whispered, then rose. And the power that had seemed to rest in his hand shifted back toward the originator of the idea. He stammered. He attempted a defense built on ego. And I stood there with my hands steady, my breath even, my voice even easing into the vulnerability of a man who had almost lost everything. The moment felt heavy with the weight of every late night, every sacrificed lunch, every missed birthday, every call from a mentor asking if we would survive. And in that weight I found a kind of justice that did not humiliate but corrected. And I watched as the truth poured from the stage, like a clear stream that could not be dammed again. Redemption arc. The pain did not melt away, but it became a fuel I used to build something bigger than myself. I did not seek revenge for revenge's sake. I sought to protect others from the same trap I had fallen into. I started a foundation for founders, a small beacon where new ideas could be cared for, where the risks of theft, misrepresentation, and greed could be recognized before they became ruin. I wrote a book, plain and honest, a guide born of ruin and resilience, a manual that would tell truth without bitterness, that would give courage without preaching. The money I earned from that book and from a new company I launched went into a fund for IP protection, a service that helped young teams protect their work, secure their prototypes, and know their rights before someone else could seize them. I measured every step by the relief I saw in the faces of others who came to us, who asked not for revenge, but for guidance, who asked for honor in business. I learned that power does not lie in the moment of victory alone, but in the ability to lift others as you climb. The foundation grew into something that looked like a quiet revolution, the network of mentors and peers who believed that loyalty could be stronger than greed, and that success could be shared without surrendering the soul. I found a way to turn the pain into purpose. I turned the old wound into a shield and a guide, the compass that kept me honest and focused on the right finish. People who once doubted me came to see that my work carried more than a profit. It carried a duty to create a safer space for ideas to grow, to remind the world that one person can lose much and still choose to build more. The book turned into a movement. The startup became a symbol of integrity. And I did not forget the friend who betrayed me in the heat of ambition. I did not declare a vow of vengeance in a way that would destroy him too. Rather, I made sure that his choices did not follow him into the future that I was building, and I offered him a chance to change, to join us as a witness of truth, rather than a thief of the future. The lesson was simple in its stubbornness. Pain can be used to heal if you choose to shape it into something that protects others, not a weapon to strike at every shadow. I did not erase the memory of what happened. I used it to remind people that light can be louder than any lie, that honesty can outpace even the most dazzling disguise. If I can stand here with my own name again, if I can breathe easy after the storm, it's because I chose to recast the worst moment as the opening act of a longer, brighter story. I chose to build a life that would outgrow the betrayal, not in revenge alone, but in the justice of a world where the hard work of a decent man can be better than a cheap win at another's expense. 6. Ending. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe to this channel.